For many years, Africa has been seen as a source of talent for events and leagues worldwide. However, it has rarely been seen as a big enough stage to host these events by itself. Over the past 15 years, though, this has changed dramatically. In 2010, we had the first FIFA World Cup held in Africa, and just last weekend, we had the first ever African Cycling World Championships held in Rwanda. Alongside the great sporting events that have been held there, the top tier talent that have been produced by Africa over recent years showcases another reason to why it is slowly building its claim to become the next top sporting continent. In this video, I'll be looking into the significance of the UCI Cycling World Championships held in Rwanda just last weekend, as well as other sporting events hosted in the continent in the 21st century. As well as this, I will be looking at all of the top tier talent that they have produced. And finally, I'll be looking into the unfortunate challenges that Africa faces as a continent to be hosting these sporting events, as well as the opportunities that could arise for them as well. If you like this video, please give it a like and please subscribe to the channel for more weekly content. Just last week, the UCI Cycling World Road World Championships were held in Africa for the first time ever, more specifically in Rwanda, and it was deemed the hardest event the sport had ever seen. It was so hard that only 30 of the 164 starters managed to finish the race, meaning only 18% of the riders who started crossed the finish line. With the circuit consisting of 267 kilometres and 6,000 metres of climbing, it is no surprise that so little riders finished. But for us fans, a thoroughly entertaining event was put on show, with Tadej Pogacar once again breaking more records, becoming the first rider ever to win the Tour de France and the Cycling World Championships in consecutive years. But did Rwanda, and more importantly, the UCI, deem this event as a success? UCI President David Lepartien praised Rwanda's leadership and vision, crediting President Kagame's support for hosting the event. Rwandan officials and media emphasised that this wasn't just a race, it was a legacy project, a way to inspire the youth and boost national pride. With the energy of the fans on the side of the road, it will be easy to think that it will be hard to keep them under control and out of the way of all the riders. However, the organisation was praised heavily on how well they dealt with the event, unlike the likes of the Vuelta just a few months ago. Some commentators also stated that this was a win-win for everyone involved, as we had great racing as well as great fan engagement on the sides of the roads. For African cycling as a whole, it was a great opportunity for local riders, teams and the youth to experience what it's like to be cycling at the very top. As well as this, organisers and cycling bodies deemed this as not just a one-off and saw it as more of a stepping stone for future events to come. Now this would be absolutely brilliant, as it will build the cycling culture in Africa massively. And from what's been said, the only real faults that come out of this event is that it was too hard. But this is the Cycling World Championships, the toughest event of the year. It's meant to be hard. After all was said and done, the 2025 UCI Men's Road Race World Champion Tadej Pogacar had this to say on the event. I really feel it. It's the nation of 1,000 hills. From the moment I arrived here until today when I'm leaving, I will remember Rwanda in a really positive way. I had one of the best training experiences here with my girlfriend and my team. This made the race even more special. Overall, the Kigali World Championships weren't just a race, they were a statement. Riders like Remco Evenepoel and Tadej Pogacar spoke about the sheer challenge of riding in Rwanda, but also spoke about the pride of riding in Africa for the first time ever. From the men to the women to the junior riders that all competed in the 2025 World Cycling Road Championships, it proved that Africa isn't just here as a one-time thing. They are here to change the development of cycling. From speaking about legends of cycling like Tadej Pogacar, it's now time to move on to speak about some of the talents Africa has produced itself. If there's one thing that Africa has never lacked, it's sporting talent. For decades, athletes from the continent have shattered records and constantly dominated the world stage. In football, African stars are household names. The likes of Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane have been pivotal to success at Anfield. Before that, we also had Didier Drogba and Samuel Eto'o, who were heroes of European football. And going back even further, we can even look at the likes of George Weah, the first ever African Ballon d'Or winner, who is now, funnily enough, the president of Liberia. African runners like Eliud Kipchoge have been dominating the scene for years, and that never seems to stop, as African runners always seem to be redefining human limits and breaking records. Even linking it back to cycling, in 2024 we had our first ever black African winner, that being Binyam Girmay. He also that year went on to win the green jersey, the sprinter's jersey, becoming the first African man to do so. Basketball is another sport where African excellence is always on show. Joel Embiid, the reigning NBA MVP, was born in Cameroon. Fellow countryman Pascal Siakam also won a championship with Toronto. Giannis Antetokounmpo is another star in the NBA with Nigerian roots. Behind them, the NBA Africa Academy and the Basketball Africa League are nurturing the next generation of basketball talent in Africa. From football pitches to running tracks, cycling climbs to basketball courts, African talent is rife across the globe. And although I've just spoken about a handful of these athletes that are competing at the very top level, a lot of African talent are proving that they are not here just to compete, but they are champions who are set out to dominate the world of sport. The question is, can the continent itself rise to match the level of its global stars? Before Rwanda welcomed the world of cycling, the first real taste Africa had at hosting a global event came in 2010, when South Africa held the first ever African World Cup. It was the first time football's biggest ever event had come to the continent, and the world was watching. Many doubted if Africa was ready to host an event of such magnitude. Questions over security, infrastructure, and if the stadiums were going to be built on time were rife amongst the media. But when the tournament began, those questions soon faded. It was probably one of the most memorable World Cups of recent history. Whether it be Diego Forlan mastering the impossible Jabulani football, Shabalala's wonder goal in the opening match against Mexico, or Spain's first ever World Cup victory, the 2010 World Cup was an iconic one. And I mean, there's so much more to add. The vuvuzelas echoing around the stadium, Frank Lampard's ghost goal, Ghana's amazing run ended by a handball from Luis Suarez, it was truly unforgettable. Beyond the football, the World Cup was proof that Africa could finally hold one of the biggest global events. Yes, some stadiums may now be white elephants and its legacy may be somewhat tainted, but the symbolic nature of the 2010 World Cup was a breakthrough moment for African sport. The tournament changed perspectives, inspired the next generation, and also paved the way for future events hosted in Africa. But if Africa is going to become the next big sporting continent, it won't be without its challenges. In some countries, basic sporting infrastructure is severely underdeveloped. Stadiums, velodromes, training facilities, and transport links are often not at the level needed to host big sporting events. For example, the 2010 World Cup created some amazing stadiums in South Africa. However, since they have been hardly used. Financing is yet another hurdle that these countries face. Building and maintaining world-class facilities often takes huge sums of money. Sometimes governments step in to help, but for long-term sustainability, you need the investments from privateers or sponsors. Without big influxes of money, it's hard to turn one-off success into a lasting legacy. Another issue is that sporting growth isn't spread out evenly. South Africa, Morocco, and Kenya are just 3 countries, to name a few, that have a lot more resource than other smaller countries in the continent. The danger is that Africa's rise could feel concentrated to just a few hotspots, rather than lifting up the continent as a whole. And finally, there's perception. Too often, questions regarding safety, organisation, or readiness for events are posed to Africa more than other continents. The success of Rwanda's Cycling World Championships or the 2010 World Cup in South Africa break this mould. However, questions still arise. These challenges don't erase Africa's potential, but instead they show what needs to be done for the continent to improve and not just host on a one-off basis, but continually do so. But alongside the challenges, there are the opportunities. Africa aren't just waiting for opportunities to fall to them, they're actively building on them. The first opportunity is that Africa is the youngest continent in the world, with over 60% of the population being under 25 years of age. That means an enormous fan base, an endless talent pool, and a generation connected to sport that other generations haven't been previously. Furthermore, we're also seeing the global calendar shifting. Rwanda have just hosted the first ever Cycling World Championships in Africa, and in 2030 Morocco joins Spain and Portugal in co-hosting the 2030 World Cup. And the Basketball Africa League, which is backed by the NBA, is giving a professional platform to athletes across the continent. Another opportunity is that governments and private investors are starting to see African sport as a business and branding opportunity. Rwanda has used cycling to help grow its international image, and Morocco are pouring money into the likes of athletics and football. And across the continent, stadiums, training facilities, and academies are being put in place with the future in mind. And with the way the world is now, Africa isn't isolated anymore. It's plugged into the global sporting economy, where international federations are realising the potential of audiences and markets that Africa has. From World Athletic Meets in Nairobi to future cycling events being proposed in Eritrea and Rwanda once again, the momentum is definitely growing. With a young population, a growing economy, and the chance to host some of sport's biggest events, Africa has an opportunity no other region can match. The question isn't if the continent will rise in world sport, it's how fast can it get there. From South Africa's legendary 2010 World Cup to Rwanda's 2025 historic Cycling World Championships, to the preparations from Morocco for the 2030 World Cup, Africa has proven it can host at the very highest level. A young, passionate population, a talent pool across multiple sports, and a wave of worldwide international investment means that Africa is still on the rise. The athletes are there, the fans are there, and the world is now starting to pay attention. Africa isn't just part of sport's future, it is the future, and the rise is already taking place. If you have enjoyed today's video, please subscribe to the channel and give it a like, and leave any comments or questions down in the comments section below. And until next weekend, that is all from me.